For joining us this morning for our City Council Budget Development Meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Here. Mangum.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Paulson. Black.
Here. Thank you. Before we get going, I just want you to just let you know that Councilmember Paulson's been excused from today, and so he won't be with us today, and we'll see if we can get him here tomorrow. With that, we'll go ahead and jump into agenda item number 2 is our Parks and Recreation Department, and Butler and Parks and Recreation Director and department representatives will be in attendance to give a presentation on the following divisions: Parks and Recreation Administration, Parks, Golf Courses, Summer Concert, Recreation, Cemetery, and Zoo Idaho. Ann.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ann Butler, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm excited to have our team back here. They're going to jump up when their division's called and talk with you today about our budget. So I'll go ahead and jump in here with the Parks Administration budget and the Summer Productions presentation. Just a little overview of kind of the layout of our Parks and Recreation Department. We have a park side and a recreation side. And then on the recreation side, you'll see the Ross Park Pool, the Rec Center, Team Sports, Outdoor Rec, and Zoo Idaho. And then on the park side is all of our landscaping, maintenance, and that also includes the cemetery. So, projects that we completed in FY25. I'm excited to say we are currently under construction at the skate park. They are actually pouring the bowl today, so it'll be pretty exciting. That was an ARPA-funded project. I'm hoping that will be done here probably within the next month and a half. So,
Is Brent pouring it?
what?
Is Brent pouring it?
Brent's
been out
over
there.
They've asked us to have him stay away, but no, that's not true.
And then you guys have seen the pros that we've been working on with the planning department all of last year, and we completed this spring. So excited to say we've completed our first master plan for the department. Headcount in the administration budget is myself and Kelly Hansen, our executive assistant, so it stays the same at 2. This budget is mostly personnel and benefits, as you can see below. We're just looking at the normal increases in payroll and the 3% increase in operations. Pretty standard there. Interfund went up slightly, and that's probably the biggest change in that budget. Then I'm going to move on to summer productions. This is a very small budget within the recreation side. I do have a very small ask only because this budget has been kind of in the red since I started. And those of you that don't know, our summer production is a 6-week concert series in June, July, and August. There's roughly 40 performers that perform, and I'm asking for an increase in the budget of about $1,800, and I'll explain why. So like I said, it's currently in the red slightly, but the performers are looking to be paid a little bit more. They're currently paid $35 per performance. And so what that includes is they have a couple hours of practice time before the concert that week, and then a couple hours of concert time. I think 4 hours is probably shorting them a little bit for the time that they put in for those events. So at $35 times the 4 hours per week, they're getting paid about $8.75 an hour. This would increase that to $10 an hour, but also put the budget into the black.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
may I ask a question?
absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, and Ann, any idea what attendance has been at those concerts?
I
It's a
don't
long
know.
time since I've been there.
I know that the numbers have been pretty steady. It is a very stable number. I wouldn't say that it is necessarily increasing substantially, but not decreasing. It is a little bit older clientele that just kind of enjoy that Sunday evening concert. It is I would consider it stagnant at this stage.
Thank you.
But there are quite a few families. It's not just the older couples. There are quite a few families that go and kids run around. It's a great activity. So, yeah.
Expenses in this budget, like I said, it's about $10,000. We're running slightly higher than that. There's no interfund in this as well as of this last year. Questions for me on that budget? Either of those?
Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in fiscal year '24, it was more for professional services.
It was, that's actual. That's what was spent actual, and the budget is actually, was $9,400. That's why I'm asking for the increase.
Oh,
So what we're
okay.
spending is slightly
Okay.
more than what the budget actually is.
Thank you.
So is the 97 going to be the correct amount then?
Not with the 1,800, it would be, that's the current correct amount, but we would have
Okay.
to add the 1,800 if you saw fit.
And then it will be in the black. Okay.
Yep. All right.
I'm sorry, any other questions, council? Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Ann.
I'll move on to our Parks Division. Come on up here, Braden. Introduce yourself for the council.
My name is Braden Millward. I am the park superintendent.
Braden's been with us about 6 months. We're excited to have him. I'm going to give most of this presentation, but if there's a technical question or something, he might jump in here for us. Projects completed in FY25. We have completed the Upper Ross Park restroom remodel. That was in desperate need. It is very busy up there with disc golf and other activities. Skate park, irrigation and landscaping, we will be completing that. We've done some of the drainage work, but we'll be completing that as soon as they're done pouring concrete at the skate park. Purse Park Playground, I know you guys are aware of this one. We do have the playground in. There'll be a little bit more irrigation work to be done, and then we'll be ready for the presentation and the name change in early July for the Purse family. Legacy Park Irrigation and Playground, we do have the playground. It was purchased with ARPA funding. The irrigation is in, and we're just doing some final touches on it, and then we'll be seeding that here shortly. And then we'll, probably later this summer, we'll get to the playground. I don't think we'll get to that here in the next month or so. I wanted to show you guys this one. I know the picture's probably out of date already, but our park signage is quite old. And in-house, we have designed with the new rebranding a new sign, which you guys will see. This is a version of it, not the final version. So it'll say Pocatello Parks and Recreation. Everything will be interchangeable. We'll be able to unbolt names if we need to. If there was an accident or it was hit by a car, we could pull off the pieces and repair those. Just comparing this to what options we had out in the community, I think this is going to last significantly longer than what those options were. This will be powder coated to match our current rebranding. So you'll start to see those out in the community, and I'm anticipating Purse Park will probably be that first one to go up. Headcount in the Parks Division, 3 exempt, 12 non-exempt, and then a slew of seasonals that help us get the growing season through. Last year you did add 2 full-time positions, which actually turns out to be 4 for us during the growing season. We split those with the street department. That has been very successful on our side so far. We are thrilled to have them and to get a little more manpower. They are a great skill set for what we need. Expenses, you can see most of this budget is also personnel and benefits. Operations moved the 3%. Interfund moved up a little bit. I won't read those numbers to you, but there is a slight increase in total operating from last year to this year. Revenue, we are projecting a 3% increase to revenue this year. I wanted to point out in FY25, you'll see a very large number there that really doesn't make sense for us. That was actually the donation for the splash pad and some other donations that we had. So that's why there's that very strange number in other. Just some future needs that we have. I know your guys' goals have changed a little, so I will update that for next go around. But in general, these have stayed the same for us. Number 1, deferred maintenance is a deal for us. Riverside Clubhouse replacement, we're always talking about trail maintenance funding. We currently don't have any funding in our parks budget for that. Playground replacement plan. Ideally, what we'd like to see is whatever you guys deemed appropriate is a pot of money for playground replacement, and then we can shop sales. If that's $100K, sometimes we can do 3 playgrounds a year, sometimes we can do 2. If it's a large playground, that means we're probably only doing 1 that year, but just somewhere to start. Other things on our list, golf course irrigation systems, Hallowell Park renovations, and then equipment for us. I know we do a great job in the city handing down equipment, but gang mowers for us is not something that really gets handed down from other departments because they don't have that use. So that's something that we do need to take care of, and so that's something we're always mindful of. And then I just wanted to show you that picture of Hearst Park there, completed, so. We do have a little bit of money that goes in each year towards a gang mower. When a gang mower is $130, I think when we were setting that money aside, it was closer to $80,000. So every 4 years, we were starting to see one of those. As you can see, at $130, it takes a little bit longer for us to have that kind of money. Questions about Parks Division?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Just keep chugging away by myself up here for a minute.
There you go.
Golf capital improvement. Projects for this past year, we did do a Highland sewer relining, and we were having a lot of blockages in that pipe, and so they completed that this last fall. We also did with the VFD, you guys funded a VFD through ARPA money with the water department, which caused a little bit of a change in our irrigation system software, so we did make an update to that. We should start to see some pretty good efficiencies with that. And then just kind of an ongoing, of course, the golf course has a lot of trees, and we're constantly trying to keep up with that. Operations, you can see everything moved up meagerly here. The biggest portion of this is capital improvements, about $83,000 a year. Revenue, we did increase that based on the past contract. So I moved it up to 200. We know we're gonna see the 200, and then depending on how they do, we see above that. So we did move it up to 200. I talked a little bit about this in our parks presentation, just to include the clubhouse at Riverside Golf Course. It's getting closer to the top of the list. It's definitely in my top 3 at this stage. I do know it's a big ask, and so it's something we're working on. And then just aging infrastructure, of course, and our irrigation systems. Capital X, there's a little bit of money that gets put away for that. Questions about golf?
We have been working on the clubhouse at Riverside there, and so we've got, I think, some money set aside for that. It's just now we're looking for a sponsorship, and
Yep.
maybe this is a plug to get a sponsorship for that. Talk to a few people, and there's a little bit of interest, but not quite enough to push them over the edge yet.
Yep.
So,
If you know somebody interested, please let me talk to them.
yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to recreation. Come on, everybody. Who's gonna start? Please introduce yourself.
Richard Henderson, Team Sports.
Stacy Van Kirk, Recreation Manager.
Carrie Rhodes, Outdoor Rec Manager.
Just some of the things that we've been able to complete just at Ross Park at this point. And we did the resurfacing of the floor in December, so it looks really great. The old one was 15 years old, so. The main building will be getting lockers. They're being shipped in right now, so not sure how we're gonna tackle that, but hopefully we're gonna do some sections at a time. Otherwise, we'll probably just see a fall completion on that. The bridge is replaced. It was rusting on the underpan, and so it looks so much nicer now. And then the deck drainage, which was crucial, and it works perfect. So those are some great improvements that we were able to do.
For outdoor recreation, we completed the Nordic Center yurt, so we moved the yurt, constructed a new deck, and reused some of the yurt from the previous one. We completed a trail using volunteer labor in City Creek. We completed the Pocatello Creek trailhead, which accesses the Pioneer Ridge Trail System with a grant from the state, from the Mountain Bike Plates Fund. And then we also installed signage throughout City Creek, about 60 signs, from a grant from Marathon Petroleum last year.
So we are a pretty lean department. You can see that we just have our 3 exempt. We have 3.5 exempt that work at the rec center. And then we are just heavy seasonal operated, some year-round seasonal, some just hired for the season.
Are you able to get the seasonals hired?
The quantity that we need?
Yeah.
I was really fortunate this year. I'm full staffed. I don't know about these guys, but it seems like we're doing really well, and they're making a wage that is desirable enough for 15-year-olds.
Okay. Sounds
We have a
good.
little bit of a different environment. The recreation side doesn't struggle as much for staffing. It's kind of a niche. It's really fun to be at the pool and be part of that group of lifeguards, and so we don't struggle as much as other places. I know the Parks Division does struggle to find, and cemetery, to find people that are interested in mowing and weed whacking and pulling weeds every day.
Okay. Rick?
Mr. Mayor, I've had a couple of people ask why we close so early at the pools, why we can't figure out how to keep that open just a little longer when summer's still rolling.
I'll tell you a couple different things. I mean, everybody goes back to school, and ISU, we're funded by students that are in ISU and high school. Once their sports season starts, we can barely make it through August with the staff that we have. They have football twice a day, and then swim team. We struggle to even stay open to our last day. So and then once we compete against the fair and all the other things that happen in fall, it would be the same, like maybe 5 people trying to run a 17-person operation.
That's the answer I expected.
Yeah,
Yeah, we just lose all of the seasonals.
yeah.
Easy to get them now, hard to keep them then.
Could I follow up with a question, since we're talking about RPAC? How's the slide doing? It was talked about a lot about an
Right.
income-producing venue. How are we doing?
Yeah, I was gonna mention, it's doing great. We had our largest weekend just on Saturday. We had more visitors, 1,700 in one day. Largest day I have ever known of since being here 15 years. We had 562 slide rides that day. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a trajectory that's just gonna get larger and larger. So,
We have seen everything we have put money back into, people have come out to enjoy. So I'm hoping, we're gonna talk a little bit about revenue projections. Based on what we're seeing, I think those can go up even higher.
yeah.
And I've told Ann and Chantel that. We have seen significant increases at the rec center and the pool. Shocking. It was May 31st. You shouldn't see potentially cutting off entrance in a facility on the first day. That's wild. So,
Yeah, I've never been to where I feel like uncomfortable, and it was getting there on Saturday, where I was like ready to be like, we're gonna have to wait till people leave before we let more people in. So it was nuts, but it was great.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Need a bigger parking lot?
Tremendously, and a little more grass space would be great.
Bigger parking lot, more grass, maybe a pool or two.
Okay, and the next slide, the expenses for the 3 divisions in recreation. That does not include the zoo. They have their own. They're in recreation, but they're not included in this presentation. They have their own. And then projected revenues for next year, general youth programming or educational, as we call it, and then your other miscellaneous would be admissions generally, 2 different, Ross Park, Rec Center.
Like I said, we went up, I think about 30K last year in anticipation of the slide with a plan to move up again. We've moved up again, but in talking with budget managers and Ann, I think we're gonna go up a little bit more there as well.
Makes sense.
So looking at our future needs, we have some deferred maintenance with the rec center plumbing and mechanical upgrades, rec center locker rooms, the pool tile regrouting and surrounding walls and flooring, and then the air handling system in the rec center. Other projects that we need to tackle at some point are outdoor recreation and Nordic Center, new UTV out there for summer operations and winter grooming. Outdoor recreation, City Creek Trail Plan, which we actually have submitted for a grant to cover that, or at least cover a portion of it. Upper City Creek Trailhead project improvements, again, another grant has been submitted for that. And then team sports, new tennis courts throughout.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, talk about those short-term goals. They're all labeled 1A. Is there any priority? To me, the air handling system ought to have a higher priority. You know, that's what killed the Blackfoot pool, was the inability to keep the humidity out of the insulation and out of the building. So is there any priority among these 4?
So last year you gave us some money to have an architectural study done of the rec center, which is why we pushed the ARPA money we had to Ross Park while we did that. We are currently working on that. We are almost done with the architect. What they're doing is they are designing the rest of the facility renovation in phases. We're anticipating that would probably be about 5 of them. We are trying to figure out the best approach to what order they go in. Probably locker rooms before the pool deck, only because of other operations and where sewer line locations are. But these 4 items would all be covered in our potential plan moving forward.
Okay.
Questions for us about anything recreation? Thanks, guys. Cemetery.
Good morning. Casey Keller, Maintenance Supervisor at Parks and Rec and also over both cemeteries.
I'm Kristen Davibatia, the office manager at the cemetery office.
All right, so our cemetery completed projects. We did the cemetery spring cleanup, and that was between our staff and multiple church groups and other organizations came through. At one point, we had 500 volunteers come at once, and they did a lot of work. They went from north to south in half a day. It was pretty wild. We also did some tree trimming, removal and trimming of 200 plus trees that were just waiting to cause havoc like that last snowstorm. So we got a lot of those out of the way. We also added a south entrance, which makes it easier for funerals and limousines to get in and out of there. It's actually made a big difference so far.
Is that off Barton Road?
Yeah, yes,
good.
it is.
Something we've been talking about for a long time, but just decided to get it done.
Yeah.
Engineering helped us with that, so if Meryl's here, thank you, Meryl.
Good.
We also got the front fencing replaced to match all the way along the front now. And we did save some of the older stuff in case, you know, Historic Society wants to use some of it. We've got all the roads paved and it looks great now. It's all even. We're working on continuing irrigation efficiency throughout the whole cemetery. We got the tree work. We did a bunch of work on Brady Chapel renovations and the south entrance off Barton.
I just wanted to include this because there were a lot of other departments that played a piece of this to make the cemetery look nicer, and I just wanted to give them credit for their assistance. I know engineering's helped, water's helped, the street department's helped when we've called. It's been a team effort, and you see some substantial improvements in that cemetery in the last year or two.
It really looks good.
It really looks good, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I walk by there a lot, and it is, excuse me, looking really good. I did have a question about the marmot problem. There was a story
Yes.
publicly about that, so, excuse me. I was just wondering how we're doing with that, because it's looking so good, I don't want them to ruin it.
So we are working with Wildlife Services. There are a couple different techniques they've been using. I found that one seems to work a little bit better than others, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that after. It's upsetting to people sometimes, rock chucks are a wild animal and they've been in the cemetery for a long time, but they are causing substantial damage, and so we are trying to find a balance. I think we're making some good improvements. One of the things that our staff needs to work on is there's that back section on the back road. There's some junipers and some other stuff that we've been storing there for years upon years. I think it's housing a lot of our marmots at this stage. Once we get that cleaned up, plus what we're doing, I think we're gonna be in a really good position. But it is something we're gonna have to keep tabs on and treat regularly. It's not something we'll be able to just say, okay, they're gone now.
Do we budget?
We do budget
that?
and work
Okay.
with Wildlife Services, yeah. I think they've been pretty affordable for us and they've worked pretty hard. We probably owe them more than what they've charged, so.
Thanks.
Personnel, we have myself as exempt, 4 non-exempt, and 8 seasonals.
Expenses, you can see personnel is the biggest hit in this budget. You'll see the new line that we added that I spoke with you about during the fee discussion. We have added an endowment if you choose to include those fees improvements. Everything else looks pretty standard. There is a meager amount for capital improvements that we have for some heavy equipment for replacement there. But you will see a big increase, and it is all in that endowment. Revenue's the same way. Those fees are substantially more than what they were. And all those dollars will be put in an endowment for future maintenance and repairs.
Cemetery Division future needs. We'll be continuing automation on the irrigation system, future planning for other cemetery locations, which we'll need fairly quickly. We'll be preparing bare ground with landscaping for future services at Mountain View and at Rest Lawn.
And then that little bit of capital X money that we put aside for gang mowers and equipment.
Yes.
What's the limit on cemetery taxing?
I don't
The
know the
levy.
answer off the top of my head for that, but
Are we there with the 293?
I,
Close, yes.
We're maxed out?
Not max, no, sir. Close.
Thank you.
anything else? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
One more, we are so close.
We'll drag this one out then.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Peter Pruitt, Zoo Idaho Manager. So we've got some projects that we did for FY25, including the ARPA potable water to Zoo Idaho and Upper Ross Park bathrooms. We are working on a wetland viewing renovation up there on top. That's coming through a Bissline grant. And then we are also in the process of building a new badger exhibit across from our coyote exhibit, which is also being built through a Zoo Idaho zoological donation. And then, of course, our ongoing Oregon trumpeter swan restoration project. That will probably go another 3 to 5 years.
Your badger exhibit is across from,
Coyote.
when
On
you
the
say
upper level.
across, do you mean north? Do you mean,
North, yeah, right
okay,
across
across the pathway?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then with our personnel, there's one exempt, which would be myself, 7 full-time staff. We have 5 seasonal, 2 of which are year-round staff that average under 29 and a half hours per week for a grand total of 12. With our expenses, as typical, most of it's coming from personnel and operations. And for this year, we did get an additional $45,000 for upper path replacement, which will be happening this month. So next year, we've removed that from capital improvements. With our revenue, we are gradually seeing increased revenues, and one nice thing is with our concessions, that's basically all coming from our gift shop that Connections Credit Union helped us build. So that has been a very nice revenue resource. With our youth programming, that's coming from our education department. We kind of kept that steady this year because we've got a new education curator, so we want to let him get his feet on the ground before we start increasing revenue from there.
Good.
With our zoo future needs, of course, we've got our black bear exhibit. We are slowly working on a capital campaign to start with that, and path replacement and repair. I think for the most part, the majority of the paths in the zoo are 20 plus years old, and so they do need some help. And then with other projects and or equipment that we're working on, raptor exhibits that would be down across from our elk exhibit. Of course, play structures, instead of having one central play area, I'd prefer multiple play areas across the zoo. And when we get up on the upper level, there's not a lot of shade on that sagebrush step. So we want to build guest shaded rest areas. And one of our bigger needs is a reliable vehicle for our education programming. We do now go across the state of Idaho. And so traveling to Boise or Coeur d'Alene would be nice to have a vehicle that has less than 100,000 miles on it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what vehicle do you guys have currently?
We have a fire department hand-me-down.
Okay. Follow-up question.
Yes.
How are admissions? Are you guys increasing? Are you seeing more people coming? Or is it
So yeah,
stagnant?
we've got it. We're having a slow, steady increase. About 4 to 5% every year. So, and then we just had our free day Saturday, and it was the second largest at 4,400 people.
So for your youth programming, are you seeing an increase there also, or is that?
Yes, we actually, our increases are coming with our outreaches, and we've had to, the last 2 years, we've had to turn down a lot of the outreaches just because we've had 2 separate ed curators at that time. So most of I know we are the one zoo that does go across the whole entire state. So when we look at Idaho Falls and Zoo Boise, they're exotic zoos. We're native, and most of the programming want native animal programming in their schools. So we hit every single school in Idaho Falls, and they've got a zoo right there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Awesome.
That is awesome. Good.
I was a little concerned when you said you put the badger across from the coyote. I was like, no, hold on now. Like,
Well, no, it's we've just sunk everything into the basalt. So if she wants to dig out, good luck.
Yeah.
So,
The black bear exhibit, what kind of expense are we looking at that? That's
our goal is 500,000.
okay.
And we would put it up top, right past the badger exhibit that we're building before you get to the grizzly bear exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd reroute the path to make it a little bit wider, and then put in between the 2 exhibits more of a rounded seated guest area. So people do have the opportunity to stop and rest and hang out up top.
So it'd be on the right side of the path as you're
Yep.
going up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it's as close to every utility up there as possible. Again, we're working with basalt, so we try to make sure that we don't have to blast through it
probably wise. Rick?
Mr. Mayor, how are you going to contain the badgers?
What's that?
How will you contain the badgers?
So with the fencing and the posts, we've actually sunk them right into the basalt rock. We dug down, and the exhibit we exposed every bit of basalt rock. And then after we did that, we put in a concrete foundation all the way around it. So for her to get out, she'd have to really work at it.
Too bad we can't put her on a leash and take her over to the cemetery occasionally.
We do, there are wild badgers up on that Sagebrush step. We've had a couple hang out with us in the winter at the zoo, so.
That's a really great idea, though.
See if you could herd them over there, the wild ones, and
Yep.
Where I grew up, we had badgers and prairie dogs, and the badgers took care of the prairie dog problem.
oh yeah, sure they would. So, okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right. Then we're going to move to agenda item number 3 is Public Works. Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director, and department representatives will be in attendance to give presentations on the following divisions: Public Works, GIS, Science and Environment, Engineering, and ARPA Fund. Okay, thank you. It's updated ARPA. Oh, okay.
That 4-letter word slides.
Yes, ma'am.
This is different from what we've got.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director and City Engineer. I'm joined today with my Executive Assistant, Andrea Cole. Appreciate your participation here today. So, talk first about Public Works. Our staffing has maintained consistent. There's 1 exempt and 1 non-exempt, for a total of 2. Our salaries and benefits just went up the standard amount for both of those. Personnel costs are the large portion of this budget. You will notice a little bit of an anomaly in the operation and maintenance. It went down in FY25. There was a snafu with the lobbyist budget in there. And so that has been restored back to what it needs to be for FY26. And you will also be seeing a budget amendment in September to account for that as well. So interfund has gone down a little bit from last year. Any questions? No, it's pretty simple.
Okay.
We'll talk about GIS. So we're currently without our GIS coordinator. He decided to take a job down in Utah. And so we've been without him, but we've got Allison at Radmall with us today. She's acting as our GIS coordinator, and so she'll be available if we have some questions about details on different things. So this department has 1 exempt, 1 non-exempt position. The salaries, again, are the majority of the cost here, with benefits. Here's our expenditures. The budget has went up for personnel. Also, you'll notice a large increase in operations and maintenance. We've got about a $99,000 increase in there, which I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide. But really, that our GIS server has lived its life and is needing to be replaced. And like I said, I'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide. So, our server is currently the GIS server is currently 7 years old. Industry standard on those servers is to be replaced about 6 to 7 years old. What we'll see with that happening is it'll start to slow down. We'll have a higher percentage of failures on that. They've already told us that they will not be able to update the drivers that serve on that support the server, and that we're at an increased risk of losing data with the current programs. This server serves pretty much the whole city. It serves water, WPC, streets, sanitation, fire, police. All of our spillman data is stored on here that the county uses. and it's just used pretty much by the entire city, and so it's a pretty critical server. The server itself is about $90,000, and we anticipate if we can get the funding for that, that we'd take care of that in October. And then we also have about a $9,500 increase in our ArcGIS software that we need to account for as well. Any questions on that one?
You do a great job.
Thanks, Allison. Next is science and environment. Do you want to run the computer or you want me to? Okay.
All right, morning, Mayor and Council. Next slide. So science and environment, our personnel proposal is to remain the same next year.
Anna, did you introduce
Oh,
yourself?
sorry. Hannah Sanger, Science and Environment Administrator. For personnel, we would remain the same. We have 2 full-time staff and then about $14,000 in seasonal.
How do we get a third of a person?
Well, it's $14,000. I just calculated out that that's about
A third of an FTE.
a third of an FTE.
Upon whom is that spent?
I hire ISU students to work here in the summer or during the school year. And so we have one right now helping us with our GIS, stormwater mapping, and other tasks.
Just as interns.
Salaries remaining about the same, so we'll be at $234K next year. So our revenue primarily comes from WPC and water. We also get funded by our stormwater co-permittees, Chubbuck, Bannock County, ITD, and ISU. Previously, we got a number of grants and donations. Those are all funneled through Christine Howe now, so not accounted for here. And then we aren't receiving any stormwater permits anymore. That's going to building and engineering, and we aren't using any reserves. So. Next.
Hold on just a minute, Hannah.
So if we receive grants and donations during the year, we'll do budget amendments that'll add to the revenue stream.
Yes, with and the expenses. Yep, and it would go. It's being housed in planning under Christine's division. So she's tracking the grants and has a whole accounting system set up, which is way better than my accounting system. You're lucky.
I don't know, your accounting system works.
Personnel, same as previous. Operations and maintenance dropped a lot because the grants are being tracked in Christine Howe. So I've taken out all of our grant expenses out of here. Interfund about the same, and capital improvements, we don't have any planned. And the difference, I should say, operations and maintenance, the difference doesn't account to the grant income because we'd often get more, I know what the total grant amount is and we're only going to spend so much in a certain year. So the numbers do not match on this spreadsheet. Next. So this is just additional needs in this division that are really not science and environment focus. So greenway trails, that shouldn't say, and really open space, greenway trails, funding for a manager for those trails is going to be a growing need. As you know, it came out of the comp plan and it's been a need for the city for a long time. And this is the pride of Pocatello residents. Stormwater utility, if we ever want to go there, that is going to require a fee as well. So just want to touch on the grant management this division does. So right now we're doing a lot of grant management. This is my time, a lot of my time is spent shuffling papers around for this. So Centennial Rainy Park, which is construction in 26 to 27. We are still fundraising for the parking lots on either side. The Oxbow project, we are doing design right now. That will be finished next year. Wildfire fuels reduction, that is sort of ongoing. We have grants to spend, and then we've applied for money as well that has not been shut down. We have money to fund Portneuf Watershed Partnership. That will be for the next 2 or so years. We had an urban forest grant that has been terminated, and then park bathrooms will be spent this year.
We did some work with that urban forestry grant.
Yeah, that's what we did in the cemetery. We did a little work at the zoo. We did a little work at Sacagawea Park.
Mr.
So-
Mayor,
Yes. Yeah.
was that work paid or reimbursed before?
We received $333,000 ahead of time.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
So we've only spent what we had
Yeah.
received?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So we are not owed any money for that. Yeah.
Lucky, good.
Any questions?
Super. Any other questions for Hannah? Thank you, Hannah.
I'll move into the engineering department. Same thing, our head count has not changed over the past several years. We have 5 exempt, 4 non-exempt, for a total of 9. There are 2 exempt and 2 non-exempt that are tied to water and WPC. They're split 50-50 between water and WPC that work for the engineering department as well. So salaries and benefits are laid out there, just standard increases on those. Personnel is the largest cost that we have in the engineering department. We do have the 3% increase for the operations and maintenance and a slight decrease in the interfund for a total of $1.2 million. And then we also wanted to talk about the Fund 71, which is our alternate transportation fund. So our current balance in the fund, at the time that we did this slide, the current balance in the Fund 71 was $646,767. Current projects that we're working on from this fund are the Brennan Trail path construction and also the South Fifth sidewalk improvement design. Then we're also working on the Monte Vista path, right? So I think that portion should be the Monte Vista path, not the Brennan Trail path. But anyway, we're requesting full budget authority for Fund 71 of $979,800. That'll cover the funding requirements that we have for FY26. So we are actually, yeah, as I think about that, we're doing the Monte Vista Trail, the Brennan Trail, and then the South Fifth improvement designs. For our asks for 26, like I say, we're asking for the 979 for our budget authority. We're asking for $40,000 grant match for the South Fifth sidewalk project. So that is necessary. We've got that grant. We have to have the match for that in order to do the construction. We're working on the design this year. Next year, we'll be working on the construction. So we need the $40,000 for our grant match for that project. And then we're also making a request of $60,000 to go into the fund for future pedestrian projects. And any questions on that?
So, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Jeff, what happens if you don't get the full 979?
We have to have that 979 of authority just to make sure that we can do the project. So for example, that includes all the cost for like Brennan Trail, for example, and that's funded by TAP grants or different things like that. And so it's basically just authority. We're not asking for $979,000. We're just asking for $979,000 worth of authority
Spending
so that we can do the projects. Yeah. So we will need, like I say, we will need the $40,000 of budget in order to do the construction of the South Fifth sidewalk project. The $60,000 is what we're asking for additional just to do other projects in the future.
In spending authority or budget?
In actual budget, yeah, for the 60. Okay. That's been a great fund. It's helped us get a lot of alternate transportation projects done, and it's worked really well for us, so. All right, here's our 4-letter word. ARPA. We're so ready to be done with this one. We've provided you a new handout for this one. We were changing this one up till about 4:30 last night.
4:50, but that's fine.
Just trying to make sure we had everything lined up on this one here. So, as you recall, with our ARPA funds, we received $10,700,496 in ARPA funds. Just as a recap, those funds had to be fully obligated by December 31, 2024, and they need to be fully expended by December 31, 2026, in accordance with the federal guidelines. To this point, we've obligated 100% of our funds, and at this point, we've expended a little over $8.3 million worth of those funds, and we'll go through those projects at this point. So. With the ARPA projects, we've finished the premium pay, we've finished Brooklyn's playground, we finished the pickleball, the senior citizens center sidewalk, VFD for well number 14, the fire station number 1 staircase, the zoo potable water, and then the real property purchase from the Brennan property. Things that are still in the works and getting close to being done, there's the Ross Park slide. That's basically completed. There's a final bill outstanding, and the budget balance on that is $15,000. Well number 2, that one's almost done as well. We're anticipating that we'll have that one started up this month. There's a remaining balance of $155,000 for that project. The fire alert system is almost done as well. They've got a $43,000 balance on that. I think they're just working on their final invoices. The finance software, that one is about 50% complete. Mental health, they've spent about 2/3 of the funding for that. They've got $77,000 balance on that one. Cemetery roads, the paving is now complete, and there's $70,000 left there to be invoiced on that. And then the grant matching, we've paid out $91,000 worth of that for the Centennial Rainy Park project and the Oxbow grant project, and there's still about $584,000 left to spend on that. RPAC, Ann talked a lot about the RPAC improvements that they've made. They've spent about 50% of that funding and still have some work left to do there. The skate park, Ann also talked about that. There's $326,000 left to spend on that, and it's under construction. Legacy Park paving for that is scheduled for later this summer, and there's $45,000 left to spend on that. The First Avenue Stormwater Project, that project is complete. Streets has repaved First Avenue, and we've got about $78,000 outstanding that needs to get invoiced on that one. The Highline Road widening project, we are in the final design of that project, and we just need to get the invoice submitted for the ARPA funding to help pay for the funding on that. There's $48,500 or $48,450 left on that one. Cemetery water line, that project is complete. As far as the water department and the streets, they've paved everything. Park staff is still doing some of the tie-ins out there. There's a balance of $31,575, which will get paid to Allied, and water department will be submitting that invoice this month. So these are in accordance with those MOUs that we did at the last council meeting in December. The cemetery irrigation automation, they've expended about 1/3 of that money, and the contractor will be starting on that soon. There's $191,000 left to expend. And then the Legacy Park playground equipment, that money's been expended, and the install will begin this summer. So we've expended to date $8,721,823, and we have a balance of $2,318,673. So we're about, I'd say about 80% there, and we've accomplished a lot of great projects. So good job on that.
But it's all got to be spent by the end of this year.
End of next year, end
Oh,
of
next
26.
year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a bad four-letter word.
What's that?
That's not too bad of a four-letter word.
I got a little more gray hair from it, but we're getting there, so. Yeah, we had some great projects that we got accomplished with that funding, so. Any
Yeah,
questions?
that's good. Questions, council? Nope,
Okay,
doesn't look like it.
that's all I have.
That's it. Well, we didn't plan super well today. We should have probably had more. But I think that's all right. There's a lot of work. There's still a lot of information to go through and the council to go through on that. So thank you very much. Ann, do you want to give us a rundown or putting her on the spot
See how we like to
again?
impromptu speak?
She
Not my
does,
subject, but we'll give it a shot.
does okay doing it impromptus.
Council and Mayor, again, Ann Nichols, Pocatello Chief of Staff. We are going to continue at least for 2 more days with department presentations. We'll go through similar presentations for the remaining departments that you have. Then next week, we'll get to what we call the solution meetings, where you'll get to see each fund, where it's at as far as expenditures versus revenues, talk about how they're going to be balancing if they're not already balanced. We do have a lot of departments that use reserves, and that's the way that they're built to actually function. So you'll get to see all that. You'll get to see your tax solution sheet. You'll get to talk about the community organizations that presented to you yesterday. And then hopefully we will be finished until the July work session. Give Chantel and I some time to go through what you all talk about next week. And then we'll come back and show you where we're at.
Okay, any questions for Ann? All right, super. Ann, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And our staff, thanks for everything that you do. Appreciate it. With that, then, we are adjourned.